Hello and welcome back to my course on business studies. I'm Mr. Johnson, and in this lesson we're going to be talking about different types of business organizations. First and foremost, there are several different types of business organizations, including sole proprietorship, where a business is owned and run by one person with no legal distinction between the owner and the business. Advantages include ease of startup and complete control by the owner, but the disadvantages include unlimited personal liability for debts and obligations. Partnership is where a business is owned and run by two or more people. Partners share profits and liability and have a formal agreement defining their responsibilities within. Advantages include shared knowledge and resources and more capital, but disadvantages include shared liability and the potential for disputes among partners. Limited liability company is a hybrid form that combines the benefits of a corporation and a partnership. Owners have limited liability for the business debts and obligations, and advantages include limited liability and the potential for pass-through taxation. Disadvantages include more formalities and restrictions compared to a sole proprietorship or partnership. We're going to talk more about LLCs further on in the lesson. Corporation, a separate legal entity owned by shareholders. The business is managed by a board of directors and officers elected by the shareholders. Some advantages include limited personal liability for the owners, potential for raised capital through stock sales, and potential for lower taxes through double taxation. Disadvantages include complex regulations, double taxation for profits, and decreased control for the owners. And then a cooperative is a business owned and controlled by its members who share in the profits and benefits. Advantages include democratic control and equal distribution of profits. Disadvantages include potential for conflicts among members, and limited resources. Alright, a few different concepts that you need to know about are risk, ownership, and limited liability. So risk refers to the uncertainty or potential for loss associated with a particular action or investment. In the context of business, risk refers to the potential for financial loss or damage to reputation as a result of business decisions or events. Ownership refers to the legal right to possess and control property or assets, including a business. In the context of business, ownership refers to the right to control and benefit from the profits of a business. And then limited liability refers to the legal concept where owners of a business are only responsible for the debts and obligations of a business up to the limited amount, usually the amount of capital they have invested. So this means that owners' personal assets are protected in the event of a business being unable to pay its debts. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit more about unincorporated businesses versus limited liability companies or LLCs. Unincorporated businesses refers to businesses that are not incorporated or registered as a separate legal entity. Examples can include sole proprietorships and partnerships. The advantages are the businesses include an ease of setup and flexible management structures, but the disadvantages are the unlimited personal liability for business debts and obligations and difficulty in raising capital. So the limited liability companies, also known as an LLC, is a separate legal entity from its owners. So the owners have very limited personal liability for business debts and obligations. We're going to talk more about the corporate veil or the limited veil, as some people say. Depends where you live. Advantages of the limited companies, so you have limited liability for the owners, the ability to raise capital through stock sales, and the potential for lower taxes through double taxation. Disadvantages include more formalities and restrictions compared to unincorporated businesses, plus the complex regulations and the double taxation of profits. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about the public sector before in the video lesson I did about the public versus private sector. Click in the upper right-hand corner here to view that video. But the public corporations are a form of business organization in the public sector. They're created by the government to carry out specific functions and provide goods or services to the public, like the DMV or the post office or NASA or the IRS. These public corporations are considered a form of public enterprise and are often referred to as government-owned corporations or state-owned enterprises. So ownership. The public corporations are owned by the government or a government agency rather than private shareholders. The purpose of these public corporations are established for a specific public purpose, such as providing essential goods or services to the public, rather than the primary goal of maximizing profits like most other companies. The regulation of public corporations, they're subject to government regulations and oversight to ensure they serve the best public interest. And then funding, the public corporations may receive funding from the government or other sources such as user fees rather than relying on its own profits, which is why, they keep increasing the price of postage even though they do get some money from the government. Okay, so let's talk about the corporate veil. The corporate veil refers to a legal concept that separates the owners or shareholders of a corporation from the corporation itself. The corporate veil is a legal term that considers the corporation as a separate legal entity from its owners, even though the owners may control the corporation. This means that the owners are only responsible for the debts and obligations of the corporation up to the amount of capital that they've invested into it. The corporate veil protects the personal assets of the owners from being seized in the event the corporation is unable to pay its debts. This provides owners with limited liability, which is a key feature of the limited liability company, or LLC. The corporate veil also allows corporations to continue operating even if owners or shareholders change, as the corporation is considered a separate legal entity with its own identity and assets. However, in some circumstances, the corporate veil may be pierced, meaning the owners can be held personally responsible for the debts and obligations of the corporation. This typically occurs if the owners have engaged in illegal or fraudulent activities. If the corporation has not been operated as a separate entity with its own assets and liabilities. That's all for this lesson on the different types of business organizations. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for our next lesson on the importance of business objectives. Thanks for watching.